I pulled up to my late grandfather's 40-acre lakeside property holding a set of landscaping tools, only to find a massive yellow excavator tearing through the front orchard. A flashy real estate sign stood on the lawn, "Sold." When I demanded to know what was going on, the site manager handed me a permit with a smug grin. "Take it up with the sellers, kid." Arthur and Eleanor Vance finalized the commercial sale yesterday for $2 million. Arthur and Eleanor were my parents. The only problem? My grandfather hadn't left the land to them. He left it entirely to me. I stood there by my truck, diesel fumes burning my throat. The foreman, a burly guy named Dan, tapped his clipboard against his thigh. He wasn't cruel, he just thought everything was legal. I didn't yell or make a scene. As an architectural surveyor, I worked with deeds and property lines daily. Screaming changed nothing. Paperwork changed everything. Who brokered the deal? I asked steadily. Dan checked the sheet. A boutique group out of Chicago. Listed by your brother, Kyle. Closing was yesterday at 4. My chest tightened. The betrayal had begun. Kyle. Of course it was Kyle. My 31-year-old younger brother had never held a real job for more than 6 months. He called himself an independent venture capitalist, which was just family code for burning through our parents' retirement savings while driving leased luxury cars he couldn't afford. For 30 years, my parents treated Kyle like royalty while treating me like the family safety net. I was the reliable older son who worked 60-hour weeks, paid my own way through college, and spent every free weekend taking care of grandfather Thomas while his health failed. Thomas saw right through them. 2 weeks before he passed away in 2022, he called me into his cedar-paneled study overlooking the water. His hands were frail, but his eyes were sharp. He handed me a weathered leather folio. "David," he whispered, his voice raspy with age. "Your parents view this acreage as a quick lottery ticket to fund Kyle's reckless schemes. They'll try to take it the moment I'm gone. Protect it." My parents assumed Thomas died without a will because they ransacked his home the morning after the funeral and found empty filing cabinets. Under state probate laws, an intestate estate normally passes down to surviving children. They quietly filed for administration, claimed control of the parcel, and waited out the standard 2-year probate window. They thought they had pulled off the ultimate heist. They believed nobody would ever know. But they had made one fatal calculation. I sped straight to the county recorder's office, my pulse pounding against my ribs. For 3 grueling hours, I pulled property tax archives, land parcel registries, and the newly filed warranty deed. The full scheme came into sharp, ugly focus. My parents hadn't just sold the legacy, they had pushed through an expedited, below-market cash sale to a commercial resort developer to bypass standard title insurance red flags. Kyle had already collected a $150,000 finder's commission as the listing agent, and the remaining $1.85 million was scheduled to clear escrow by Friday morning. I drove back to my house, unlocked my floor safe, and pulled out Thomas's leather folio. Inside was the legal masterstroke, an irrevocable transfer on death deed registered under a private family land trust, drafted by grandfather's private attorney years prior. It contained a certified, sealed codicil granting sole ownership and executive authority exclusively to me, while explicitly barring my father and brother from administrative rights. Because Thomas placed the acreage into a living trust rather than standard probate, the documents my parents filed were completely void. They had sold property they had zero legal right to convey. In plain English, they hadn't just made an administrative error, they had committed high-level real estate fraud. I took the entire file to Marcus Vance, the sharpest land use litigator in the city. Marcus reviewed the seals, leaned back, and smiled coldly. "David, their title is completely defective. We file the emergency injunction now." The following evening was my mother's 65th birthday celebration. They had booked a private dining suite at an elite downtown steakhouse, funded by the expected real estate windfall. When I stepped through the double doors, the room was buzzing with triumph. Kyle was popping a bottle of vintage Dom Perignon, flashing a gleaming gold watch. My mother was beaming over glossy brochures for a waterfront villa in Florida, while my father leaned back like a king carving into a dry-aged ribeye. "David! You made it," my father bellowed, raising his glass high. "Sit down, order whatever you like. The Vance family is officially set for life. Kyle just closed our biggest transaction ever." To generational wealth, Kyle smirked, raising his crystal flute. "Some people work hard, some of us work smart." I didn't sit down. I stepped up to the table, reached into my coat, and dropped a heavy manila envelope squarely in the center, knocking over Kyle's champagne. "What's this garbage?" Kyle snapped, jumping back as vintage bubbly soaked into the white linen. "That's a certified copy of the emergency injunction served to your title company 2 hours ago," I said quietly. "Along with a complete freeze on the escrow account." The room went dead, suffocatingly quiet. My father's face turned violently red. "What nonsense is this? That property cleared probate. It belonged to us." "Grandfather Thomas never went through probate, Dad," I replied, holding his gaze. "He deeded the entire 40 acres into an irrevocable trust, naming me as sole beneficiary and trustee. You didn't own the dirt. You had no authority to list it, and zero right to sell it." Kyle turned pale. "You're lying. There was no will on file. It's a trust deed, Kyle. It bypasses probate entirely," I said. "The bank flagged your wire, the developer froze the funds, and your broker commission is gone." My mother dropped her silverware with a sharp clatter. "David, please. We're your parents. We did this for the entire family." Kyle needed venture capital to launch his firm. "You're stable with your surveying job, you don't need 40 acres of empty woods. You sold Thomas's life's work behind my back to buy sports cars for Kyle, and you didn't care if I lost everything," I said. My father lunged forward, his knuckles white against the mahogany table. "You call your attorney right now and drop this filing. If the buyer sues us for breach of contract, they'll take our retirement. They'll take our house. You should have verified the legal title before signing fraudulent deeds," I replied coldly, taking a step backward. "The commercial developer's legal team has already been notified. You have until Monday morning to sign the quitclaim surrender, or Marcus files statutory fraud charges with the district attorney." I turned and walked out into the cool night air. The fallout was swift, brutal, and total. Facing catastrophic liability, the resort developer canceled the purchase agreement immediately and sued my parents and Kyle for damages. To escape criminal prosecution, my parents had to liquidate their savings and sell their 4-bedroom suburban home to settle the breach penalties. Kyle's broker license was permanently revoked for gross misconduct. They bombarded my phone with voicemails, first screaming threats of disowning me, then sobbing for financial rescue. I saved every file for court, then blocked their numbers forever. 8 months later, the yellow excavator was gone, and the heavy silence of the woods had returned. The property was officially, legally mine. I spent the summer restoring the overgrown apple orchard, rebuilding the stone walls my grandfather had laid by hand, and placing the entire 40 acres into a permanent conservation easement so it could never be exploited. Sitting on the cabin porch, watching the golden sunset stretch across the calm lake, I took a slow breath of clean air. No manipulative demands, no golden child favoritism, no toxic compromises. Standing up to the people who were supposed to protect you isn't easy, but sometimes walking away is the only way to survive. My grandfather left me the land, but his greatest gift was the lesson on that final deed: a family built on entitlement will always crumble against the quiet strength of the truth.